I got involved with Imaginary after meeting with the casting folks over at Blumhouse. And after I met them, they were telling me about what projects that Blumhouse was working on coming up, and there were two that really piqued my interest, and this was one of them. I really responded to the like psychological narrative, you know, how there's a kind of undercurrent, this theme of childhood trauma. And I think what's really exciting about horror right now is its capacity to really like address real world themes and issues and still manage to be really scary and entertaining. So I just really like that convergence. So soon after that, I met Jeff Wadlow and it was off to the races. Jessica Barnes finds herself a new mother vis-a-vis being the stepmom to Allison Taylor, and she moves back into her childhood home with her new family, and there Alice finds her childhood imaginary friend, Chauncey. Describe Chauncey in 3 words. Surprising. Off-kilter, we love a hyphenated word, and mysterious. I love working with Tegan and Pyper. I love working with young performers. They're the most prepared. They always come, and they're also, you know, as actors, often the most open, you know, they don't have like that, they just don't have the same history that actors who, you know, are more established have. And there's a lot that you can learn from that. You know, it's a great reminder to just like stay open and really play. And the funny thing about, you know, the relationship between Jessica, which is my character, and Tegan's character, Taylor, is there's a lot of antagonism. But she and I are probably the closest in personality type, so we got along probably the best. So, you know, after every cut, we would just like fall into a fit of laughter. It's just so fun working with both of them. Tom Paine is a dream. He's a dream in every way, you know? The foundation of this film, what was really important for us was to establish that the family was happy. Like, we never wanted to, you know, feel like, oh, this is gonna be this other story. So it was really central that the relationship between Max and Jessica felt like, oh, this is a loving relationship that we're rooting for. Betty Buckley's a dream. I mean, she's one of those actors you work with, you don't know what she's gonna do. You know, she's just gonna show up and give you something super unexpected. And when you're working across from someone like that, all you can do is stay super present. And, you know, in her case, I mean, she really elevated that character to like this other level. You know, in terms of the horror genre, it could have been like just more like, you know, tropey. It's like, okay, you know, it's the quirky old like neighbor or whatever. But, oh man, Betty Buckley, treasure. Broadway treasure, theater treasure, film treasure, global treasure. Jeff is incredible, you know? When it says like he's a producer, right? He also trained as a producer, which is my favorite little note. Like, he really knows how to make a movie. He has an understanding of every department. You know, he says he's collaborative, he is collaborative. He's a really great listener. You know, there were facets because, you know, I'm an executive producer on this film, and there were departments where it was just like, that's not my wheelhouse. I don't care about that. Like hair, makeup, and, you know, he was never afraid to like give me the reins and trust my opinion and trust my insight. And that's what we had. We had a lot of like mutual respect and trust. My MO in general is, you know, as an actor, I try to walk in as prepared as possible. So that kind of stood for this one, you know, wearing both hats, like being actor and producer, even more so. So by the time I got to set, I was so prepared as an actor. I did all my nerdy, you know, actor homework so that I could be present to be a producer, so that I was there for the day and day. I was there for, you know, any problems that arose, any decisions that needed to be made. And, you know, I was an actor between action and cut. And any other time on that set, I was a producer. The scene I am most proud of in this film is Jessica has this lovely monologue, you know, it's like right before the third act of the film. She's pouring out her heart, And the reason I'm most proud of it is, you know, horror movies are scary to audiences, but for the actors making them, they're hilarious. It's really funny. You know, we have all these puppeteers, everything's practical. So, you know, I'm just like an actor on set, I'm pouring my heart out. I'm like, you know, revealing something, I think, to this little girl that I love, and then I pull back the blanket or whatever, and it's Chauncey. And that's hilarious. It's hilarious. It's so funny. It's so funny. And I was like, DeWanda, if you can do this, if you can manage to make this happen and not laugh, that's your Academy Award. Like, you did it. You did it. There will be nothing you will do that will be harder than this ever. Imaginary in 3 words. Heartfelt, unexpected, and entertaining. I think, you know, the thing about seeing a horror movie in your home is you feel a little too safe, you know? It's like you know what's real and what's not. Like, you can always pause it at home and then be like, okay, I need a break. I gotta go get some popcorn, or I'm gonna take a break, you know? There's no break when you see it in theaters. There's no break. And the way that the sound system is set up, like everything about the production, you know, you live and you feel when you go to see movies in general in the cinema, but especially and particularly horror movies, you know? And we go to see horror movies to test the limits of our fearlessness. Like, that's why we go. We go to be like, oh, it wasn't that scary. We go to like prove to ourselves, you know, that even though our heart rate is up, that like we know we're gonna be fine, you know, and to experience that collectively, you know, with other people, to be gasping at the same time, to be laughing at the same time, to, you know, feel relief, to feel fear at the same time. There's just nothing like it. There's nothing like the theatrical experience. I hope that audiences walk out of Imaginary honestly feeling connected to one of the characters. That's always my goal. That was my goal kind of both as an actor and a producer on this one. I just feel like there is, everyone has a kindred, you know? Whether you're the hero, whether you're the damsel, whether you're, you know, the kid and you see yourself, you see your childhood self in the kids in this film. Whether you're the cool and calm one, as Max is in this movie, you know, I always hope that, you know, audiences walk away with being like, oh, that's who I would be in that situation.
Well, when I first got the audition for Taylor, I was just really attracted to how strong of a character Taylor was, and also all of the different emotional elements that she's kind of going throughout this entire movie. And I think just all of the difference in emotion and all of the physical aspect of it, all of the different elements, and just the script overall was super exciting when I was auditioning. DeWanda and I, we decided to not go for the whole method thing of hating each other for filming, but I mean, DeWanda, she's a wonderful and incredible human, and also just an amazing scene partner. And I feel like if there were days where I was unsure of how to play something or just how to get to that emotion and level of performance, she was always there to help me and support me, and a very supportive person. He's so kind, and I wish I had gotten to work with him more, but he's such a kind and comforting and welcoming person. And yes, I was kind of familiar with her Broadway, obviously, and also just her in Split. And Betty, I can't even explain how working with her and how amazing she is and funny she is, and just a friendship that I'll have forever. Yes, Pyper, she's so talented and so lively and always brought the fun and the energy to set. And I mean, again, she has brothers, I have brothers, so we both, I think, felt that having that sister bond for the duration of filming, even if it was for like a month, it was exciting. Jeff was so incredible to work with. He was very welcoming, and I remember before we even started filming, we kind of sat down and really discussed Taylor and her arc and just the whole movie, and I know that I had so many questions about everything, and he was so open to answering them and making sure that I was comfortable, and it was a really great collaboration, I felt. There's a couple, there's one scene that I don't want to spoil it, but there's a couple, I think for me, I'd never really gotten to do all of these stunts before, and I don't even know if you can really see it when you watch the movie, but for me, there was a lot of scenes that I got to do a couple of stunts in them, and those were my favorite, and I haven't seen them, so I'm very excited to watch. If I had to describe imaginary in 3 words, I would say frightening, funny, believe it or not, and just nonstop. Honestly, I didn't really get to work with the Chauncey puppet and all of that, but from afar I got to see how all of that works, and watching Pyper and just all of the kind of technical things about that was super interesting, and the movement of them, and that was such a cool learning process, and as well as the huge monsters that we get into. I mean, for seeing them for the first time was just like jaw-dropping and completely went above my expectations. Ooh, I'm gonna say, who is Chauncey? I did not have an imaginary friend growing up. I had 3 brothers, so I felt like I had enough friends to keep me busy growing up. If I were to create an imaginary friend, honestly, I feel like I would have her just rehearse lines with me. I always need someone to like rehearse my lines with and keep me serious and keep me focused. So I feel like she would be really helpful with me. I feel like hopefully, I feel like I would want her to look, you know, kind of human-like, so it wouldn't freak me out too much that I'm talking to something that shouldn't be talking back to me. So I'd say like a girl, a little girl maybe, or an older girl. I think for movies in general and movies overall, going to the theaters it's such a fulfilling experience, and having it be dark and watching it with a group of people who are also seeing it for the first time and also experiencing all of the jump scares and all of the little things at the same time together. And especially for horror movies, again, you have those jump scares, and I feel like experiencing that with the audience, and it's dark in there and it's loud, and for a horror movie, that's perfect. It's the perfect way to watch a movie. I hope the audience is entertained. I hope they're completely entertained with it, and I hope that they don't even want to miss a second of it, and they don't stand up to go get more popcorn. I hope that they just enjoy it and have as much fun watching it as I did filming it.
Blumhouse has been on my list to work with for quite a long time. I really admire what they've done at that company, what Jason's done, and the movies that they create. And I had heard a lot of good stuff about how their sets are and how everyone has a good time. And also, I hadn't done a horror movie like this before. I've been out to Eastern Europe and done a horror movie. I'd never done an American studio horror movie, and that was attractive to me. And it's a family story. It's the first time I played a dad in a movie. So that was a big step up for me, and I am a dad in my private life now, and there was a confluence of things that happened around the time that the project came in. And I love the practical effects that are in the movie. There isn't much CGI in this movie, and that was really attractive to me. And the movies that I grew up with that I enjoyed were very practical, and I think that makes it more scary. And I think this film is a scary film because it feels real and yeah, tactile. Max is probably the most centered person in the story, given that one of his daughters is a teenager and the other one makes friends with a funny-looking bear. And his wife in the movie, played by DeWanda, has her own history, and I think in the movie Max serves as a nice, stable person for them all to feel at ease with and calmer around, and it was nice for me to play that center of the movie. But then he makes the mistake of going on tour with his band, and so that emotional support is not there in the same way, and I think the movie starts to move in a scary direction. Yeah, I was excited to work with DeWanda as well. I'd seen her work in other things and had taken notice. She's a wonderful actress. And but more than that, on a film like this, where you're in every single day and you're the lead of the cast and the crew, it's important, I think, that you have the right temperament and are capable of doing that, because it's not just about the acting. And I was happy to discover that DeWanda was just a fantastic leader of the cast and crew and knew her job in every single way, knew exactly what was required behind the scenes as well as in front of camera. And her character goes through a very extreme situation in the movie, and she carries it with aplomb, and is very you know, her character in the movie doesn't have children, and by her relationship with Max, children come into her life, and she's very a loving presence in the movie for Alice and Taylor. As much as Taylor pushes her away, I think she feels that, and you see their relationship change during the movie, which is really nice. Yeah, it's really fun to work with younger actors because they're in the first steps of their career. Having said that, both of them have been regulars on television shows and have a lot of experience at a young age. And I was really impressed with how professional they are, and not in a structured way, not in a way of like, this is how I have to behave. They just understand the job and turn up and do it. And there's nothing outside of that, which I really enjoy. You know, sometimes I have trouble with adult actors who like, there's lots of other extra stuff and it's not just about doing the job. And actually, it's not just about doing the job. We had a really fun time, and they're able to switch between the seriousness of the job and acting, but then also have a good time and be a real person in the world. So that was really fun, and just fun to see. There's a moment in the movie where Tegan is really upset and I comfort her, and just to see the skill of how she just turned it on. And it's not fake, you know, she was chatting to me one moment and then in this really emotional moment the next. And the same with Pyper. I mean, they're both so capable, and it was really fun for me to watch them both do such great work in the movie, and I'm really excited for them, actually. Jeff is a movie fan and a big fan of entertainment and entertaining audiences, and wants to bring that. That's what comes off of him when you're working with him. And I'm of the mind that we are there to entertain. We are there to entertain the audience, give them a good time, especially with a movie like this. And anything that adds to that is encouraged on Jeff's set. And also it's a very egalitarian set, so best idea wins. Anyone who comes in and wants to make something better, then it will be listened to. And I also like that. He's not dictatorial in his directing. He's very warm and approachable. And yeah, you just feel like he's doing it for the right reasons, basically. There's a scene towards the end of the movie where most of the cast are in it, and we're all doing something a little bit different. And that was fun, because everyone has a journey in the movie, and then by the end of the movie, everyone is slightly changed in different ways. And to play that scene at the end, which will be obvious when the audience sees the movie, was pretty fun, because I got to do something that I hadn't done before, and relate to the characters in a different way, and that was fun. And then also just any family scenes are just fun, you know, like scenes with all of us together where we're just being a family yeah, it's nice. I haven't done much working with younger actors, so that was just really lovely. Yeah, playing a dad. I would describe Imaginary as one scary bear. Real emotional childhood. No, I don't think so. If I'm very honest, I think I blocked a lot of my childhood out for different reasons. So I don't remember, and my wife thinks this is like pretty nuts. She's like, you don't remember anything? I was like, no, but are you supposed to in your 40s? I don't know, maybe more people do, but I remember certain things, but I don't remember ever having any kind of imaginary friend. But as I do have a 2-year-old now, and he is becoming more aware of the world and things around him, I definitely am seeing how children can be very scary. and just in how, because it's something about like when a child wakes up in the middle of the night and is crying, which has happened, it's kind of terrifying, because also when they're younger, they can't talk to you, so they can't tell you what's wrong. That's really scary, actually. It's generally a simple thing that you can fix, but you have to figure out what that is, and there's a panic that can come with trying to fix or help your child. And I can see how a year or two from now, when my son is able to talk, it could be even worse. Because he'll be panicking, and then he'll say something terrifying, and then I won't know what to do. I think it'd be pretty similar to Chauncey. Or actually, my son likes crocodiles, and there's something really creepy about crocodiles. And their big smiling mouths and lots of teeth, and especially like cartoon crocodiles, which would be like a cuddly toy. So yeah, I think a crocodile plushie. I think it's important to see Imaginary in theatres, because the communal experience of going to the cinema is only made better by seeing movies with other people. Because you like to feed off other people's reactions, and it's like when someone laughs in a room, you feel more comfortable with laughing. So when someone is watching a horror film like Imaginary and they get scared, they're not embarrassed to be scared if there's other people in the room who are also scared. And then it becomes fun. And then it becomes like a roller coaster. And I think that's what horror movies do really well. And I had described the Blumhouse movies as theme park rides, because to me that's what they are. You go in and you start chugging along at the beginning, and then you go up the slope and you're learning all the things along the way, and then you just get dropped off a cliff and you go through the loop and everything. And this movie absolutely 100% does that. It takes you on a journey, and you do a lot of loops before you reach the end. Fundamentally, I hope everyone's very entertained. I think that's the whole point of a movie like this, is that it's a lot of fun, and that you laugh at yourself with some of the scares, and you jump and then you laugh afterwards, because it's like the nervous laughter of being scared. I think this movie harkens back to like 80s horror movies. It has like something about it that is very grounded. It goes to some very wild places, but at its heart, it's a really grounded emotional story. And I think if we grab the audience's emotions at the beginning, we can take them anywhere. And I think this movie achieves that, and it's fun. I think ultimately you should come away feeling like you've been on a fun theme park ride, and you want to see more.
So the way I came up with the idea for Imaginary is I sat down with my co-writers, Greg, Herb, and Jason Ormland, and we decided we wanted to work together. I'd known Greg for 20 years. We'd lived in the same apartment complex when we were both starting our careers in Hollywood. And I said, I want to make a scary imaginary friend movie. And they said, well, we want to make a scary teddy bear movie. And we agreed to combine the ideas, and we came up with the script for Imaginary. Yes, we have an incredible cast in our film, led, of course, by DeWanda Wise, the legendary Betty Buckley, Tom Payne, Veronica Falcone. We're very, very fortunate to have so many outstanding performers. And they all brought their A game. They're really great in the film. They did the thing that I love with actors, is that they surprised me. They served the story, they were very collaborative, but they also made choices that I didn't necessarily anticipate, and that's my favorite thing about filmmaking. Yeah, let me tell you something about Betty Buckley. I don't know if she has an agent or manager. She shouldn't bother, because she is her own agent and manager. She is amazing. She reached out to Jason, said she wanted to be in another movie. He said, let's make it happen. He emailed me, said, do you have a part for Betty Buckley? Can she be the therapist? And I said, well, I actually think she'd be an amazing Gloria. I spoke to her, and she had some notes on the script, which I loved, and I made some changes for her, and she said yes, and she was actually the first actor we cast in the film. We also have two incredible young actresses in our film, Pyper Braun and Tegan Burns. We had an exhaustive search, looked everywhere for the actors to play these two parts, and we saw everyone. Fortunately, Blumhouse has an amazing casting team, and they know every agent, manager in Hollywood, and I was worried we weren't going to find performers who were up to the task, but we did, in Pyper and Tegan. They just blew me away. I mean, their auditions could have been in the movie. They were so good, and they're just so talented and collaborative and smart. I absolutely loved working with both of them. So the real star of the movie is Chauncey. This is what he'll tell you, at least. Yeah, so designing Chauncey was a process. We worked with a creature company called Spectral Motion. They do all the monsters for Guillermo del Toro's movies, for James Gunn's movies. I had actually met with the principal designer, Mike Elizade, when I was earlier in my career, and I was trying to get another movie off the ground, and he was very generous with his time. So I was excited to work with him again, and I actually brought him on to my last movie that I did for Netflix. And when it was time to do this film, I called them up. I said, hey, I've got another film. Do you want to do it? And they jumped right in. And I actually think they elevated the movie in ways I couldn't have imagined. Not just with the design of Chauncey, but with the designs of all of our creatures, because we do have more than just our stuffed bear in the film. And it was just a really wonderful, collaborative process, I really wanted to embrace practical creature effects in this movie. So even though we use visual effects to augment a lot of our monsters and our creatures, they all are based in the real world. They're all practical monsters by and large, aside from those augmentations. And Chauncey's a perfect example. You know, when he moves, he's being controlled by puppeteers. And I'm so glad we did it that way because he has a weight, he has a reality. And when he moves, the movements are very slight, they're almost imperceptible, but they feel very organic. They don't feel like they're defying gravity. Like you feel that he is a physical presence in the room, which is really important because we're trying to walk this line, asking the audience to ponder whether or not he's real or he's imaginary. It's hard to say what my favorite scene in the movie is because that's like asking a parent to pick their favorite child, right? All the scenes are really fun and they wouldn't be in the movie if I didn't feel they were serving the story and they were entertaining. But if I had to point out some of the ones that I think really sing, the scene with Pyper and Veronica when Dr. Soto shows up is really just incredible. Pyper's performance is next level. I was blown away. I was blown away by what she did in that scene. But also, I really love the scene with DeWanda in the bedroom where she's talking to Pyper under the covers, Alice under the covers, and talking about what had happened to her as a little girl and her experience with an imaginary friend. And I won't ruin the movie, but something very strange happens in that scene that is shocking and weird, and DeWanda does such an incredible job of both, you know, telling the story and having us connect with her emotionally, and then just like ripping the rug right out from underneath us and just staying in that moment. And not only is the scene incredible to watch, but I have such a wonderful memory from the day of shooting that scene where I was sort of walking DeWanda through some of the blocking, and I just started laughing. And she's like, "Why are you laughing?" I said, we'd been shooting for a while and it was a lot of hard work. I said, this scene is actually kind of funny, but it's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be scary. And she said, "It's okay. I understand. You know, scary movies are scary when you see them in the theater, but sometimes they're very funny when you're making them because they're so absurd." Yes, I love seeing movies in the theater because I love that communal experience. And the best movie to see in a theater is a scary film because you're on the ride with this group of people. And when they jump, you jump with them. And when they laugh, you laugh with them. And my favorite kind of scary movies are movies that take you through all those emotions. They're not just terrifying dirges. Like, I like scary movies that not only have jump scares, but also laughs, also have characters that you care about, have characters that go on an emotional journey that you feel and experience. And I think those emotions are all heightened when you're in a group setting, in a dark theater, watching this massive screen. And no one's better at making those movies than Blumhouse. If I was to describe Chauncey in 3 words, I would say that I would use the 3 words: real and terrifying. Like, I mean, that's what it comes down to at the end of the day, is that although he might be imaginary, his effect is very real. If I were to describe imaginary in 3 words, I would use the words terrifying, emotional, and fun. You know, it's a fun movie. It's a ride. You get to go somewhere that you've never been before. When people leave the theater after seeing Imaginary, I hope they feel like they had a great time, that they were scared, that they saw some things they'd never seen before, that they laughed, that they loved the characters as much as I love them now, and that they wonder if that stuffed animal might have some ill intent. Did I have an imaginary friend growing up? I did have an imaginary friend growing up. I've been thinking about this a lot. I actually had quite a few, to be honest. And I think if you interviewed most filmmakers, they would probably answer the question the same way. My favorite kind of horror movies are 4-quadrant horror movies. Movies that can appeal to everyone, right? That are ultimately sort of a scary bedtime story. That's why I love the movie Poltergeist. I love Pan's Labyrinth. I really like films that anyone can see. And so I think Imaginary is a film like that it doesn't matter how old you are, you're gonna enjoy it because it's just really a scary bedtime story at the end of the day.
Alice is a bit of a weird child. She has been through a lot of trauma with her family in the past couple of years in her life. And she's a little bit lonely. That's how she finds Chauncey in the basement of her house and finds love in his friendship. And they kind of go on this weird, creepy scavenger hunt. He's my best friend. He's familiar and he's bad. Very bad. Very, very bad. Imaginary in 3 words. I'm gonna say chaotic. It's very chaotic. Sinister. And weird. There it is. DeWanda is amazing. Not only is she amazing to work with, she's amazing to watch work. She gets things done. She treats me very nicely as a kid, and she gave me a lot of tips and tricks that will help me. I do have 2 older brothers. I have never had a sister, so I don't really have someone to base her off of. But I mean, the relationship with Tegan was kind of instantly. And we, every day after work, there were these, there was like McDonald's and Taco Bell out of work. And we would go out there and eat lunch, and then we'd go back to the hotel. And Tegan is very competitive. So when we were playing games, she would come out of her competitive side, and that really brought kind of the sister-sister relationship that I have with my older brothers. Jeff is Jeff. He is funny, and he treated me very like DeWanda and Tegan, and he makes these jokes, and he just is amazing to work with. I really hope to work with him again. My favorite thing that I got to film was painting the blue door. That was very exciting, and they didn't let me finish the door, sadly. I would have done it. I did not have my own imaginary friend, but if I did have it now, they'd probably be standing right next to me. Probably very nice to me and comforting, and probably would be my best friend, like Chauncey. After I see the movie, I just want to sit in the movie theater at the end and just watch everyone react to the movie. I really do hope they like the movie, and I want to see what people think of what I worked so hard on. So it's going to be exciting what people think of the movie.
Well, I'm a huge Jason Blum fan and Blumhouse fan. I think they've made some spectacular movies in the past many years, and I was fortunate to get to meet Jason and work with him, get to know him a little bit on the film Split by M. Night Shyamalan. I just thought he was this film producer, but no, he's like this really artistic guy, and I admire so much what he's created with Blumhouse. You know, he champions young filmmakers, and he's so creative, and like right now he has 85 projects in the works. I mean, who does that? He's like old school, only this modern, wonderful man who's like champions artists, young artists, and other artists as well. And so when I came off the Hello Dolly tour, I did the national tour of Hello Dolly for a year in 2018 and 19. Right after I finished that, he offered me a film at Blumhouse by a young writer, first-time director. And I was so exhausted from the tour that I just felt like I couldn't do the film for him, and I felt really bad about it. So I wrote him last summer saying, okay, I've got my, strength back, and what do you have out there that I can participate in? And he immediately, he's such a mensch, he doesn't make you wait a few days for his response to emails. He got right back that day and said, as a matter of fact, I have this script, I'm sending it to you now. And I was just so touched by that. So I read the script, I thought it was just very creative. This script is like his imagination gone wild. It's just like, you can just see the contents of Jeff Wadlow's mind and dreams and nightmares, you know, and I totally like that. And I like that he takes a kid's imagination and turns it into a whole other dimension world that one can actually go to and experience. And I like the idea of the endless potential of imagination, and to pay attention to a child's dreaming. That imagination can actually manifest in the world in a real way. And I think that's true. Everything that we experience and think about and believe in will happen, you know, in so many ways. And that's why it's be really careful what you ask for, you know, because it'll come true if you're not vigilant and say yes to this or no to that, you know. So I like that thematically about the movie. I think fundamentally my character is just a very lonely, socially awkward, isolated person. So she's found her solace in books, and as an ardent student of spirituality and the spiritual universe and magic and the occult, and she's done all this study and work to learn as much as she could about everything that's been written about that, about shamanism, witchcraft, and she's made herself this intellectual authority about all those things because of the influence of this significant time in her life as young Jessica's babysitter. And she's experienced such wonder through the eyes of that child. And then when she's taken away, it just rocked her world. And so she, you know, through her own desire to understand and desire to connect with that other dimension, she's written all these books and has sought to be understood in the world of intellectuals, and has been rejected there as well, because her ideas and what her notions are about this realm, they seem too far-fetched. So she's very anxious to prove that that's real, and created the clothes, and I just step into it, put on my crazy glasses. Yeah, she's very creative, our costume designer. And so the Asian kind of influence of the clothes, I think her aspiration was to be a kind of monk of no specific religion, but just the amalgam of all spiritual truth that's out there. And she's pulled it together in like her own explanation of the universe and her explanation of other dimensions. And so, but she thinks of herself as a kind of aesthetic, a monk. Jeff and I met on Zoom, and I just found him utterly charming. I mean, the guy's super handsome and just super enthusiastic. He's just so much fun. And so, again, I just felt like there's such joy being in his presence. And he goes, I want you to play Gloria. I mean, it was the easiest. You know, what do you have out there? I have this. Do you want to do it? And I'm like, yeah. And so I was very excited, but they hadn't scheduled it yet. And he handles the horror movie genre like you're tense and you're nervous at the right moment as you go through the spooky hallway. You know, he can make just the simplest shots carry the suspense and the fear factor. And I like that when a master of horror movie, stylistically, horror movies are also fun, you know, and there's a wit to it. I believe in my director and his incredible imagination. So I think it'll be great. Our set designers are out of this world, just filled with books and all of our research, and it's so eclectic. Just like, you know, you go into the set and you're just like, oh, this tells me everything about who I am as a character. And they, you know, they showed me all the scrapbooks that Bonnie had made, these scrapbooks of her research about children's imaginary friends and stuff, and it's so precise and so vast what they've done. And the set design in the Never Ever just is mind-boggling. It's so beautiful. I mean, just the sketches were just so artistic and incredible. And to actually walk on the set, you're like, what? How did they make this? It's stunning. Yeah, I'm just really grateful to be here. And like I said, I love Jason Blum, and I love Jeff Wadlow and DeWanda Wise, our wonderful, beautiful, talented, you know, powerful leading lady. I love working in New Orleans. It was so much fun to come back because I got to work with a lot of these people when I did Preacher here in 2018. And so it was just a joy to come back. I love the city, and I love the restaurants, and I love the view from my hotel room. And I've been feeling kind of nostalgic about driving through the streets of New Orleans. Like, I love New Orleans. You know, it's so much fun to be here and see my friends that live here. And then to get to reacquaint, you know, to be reunited with people on the crew that I worked with before. It's like you have a history with those people, and they're so sweet. And yeah, I've had a really, really fun time, and I hope the movie from here provides the audience and other people, everybody that comes to see it with a fun time, because that's what it was for those of us making this movie.
When I first read the script, I didn't read it in one sitting because I got scared, so I stopped. And then I think mid-read, you know, my reps were like, Jeff is interested in meeting with you. So I said, let me go ahead and finish this scary script that scared me. And then I reached that turn, which is, you know, Jessica's, essentially her emotional arc of the story, where she's, you know, in that nightmare sequence that I'm obsessed with, that I think we hopefully executed beautifully, and I was hooked. Probably, you know, the sort of connection to me is I'm a mental health advocate, and I love these kind of big genre stories that tap into something universal, something that, you know, a lot of people, or a good swath of people, can really, really identify with. And, you know, childhood is not an innocent time. There was acknowledgement that there's a great mystery at the heart of childhood, you know, and so much that we experience that we don't understand. And those experiences really turn into trauma, you know, and Jessica experiences something very difficult very early in her life, and I think kind of it's the heart of the story, and it's something that I really, really hope will resonate with a lot of people. She doesn't know yet, you know, she's really refining and defining it over the course of our story. I think there's this beautiful thread that just breaks my heart, where she's really trying to figure out what love is. Like, she's terrified that she doesn't know. She's terrified she doesn't know how to love. She's terrified that she doesn't know how to receive it. You know, she has this deep insecurity around family, you know, that she doesn't feel like she knows how to be in a family. She's never been a part of a traditional kind of nuclear family. So in that respect, this experience, when we first meet her in this story, this is completely new. We know the superficial things about her. We know she's an illustrator. We know she's successful. She's published. But we don't know, because she's still figuring out who she is in the context of this new role of motherhood that she finds herself thrust in. Megan is one of the loveliest human beings I've ever met. We're shooting her introduction, and I remember this moment where I was like, oh, wow. You could feel underneath of Taylor in so many scenes. And so her sensitivity and her empathy and her vulnerability underneath of Taylor's veneer reads as like this depth of pain. That's how you receive it. So instead of it just being like, oh, you know, she's kind of a bitchy teenager, you're like, oh, this is the girl who's hurting. This is the girl who's like trying to move through this major transition in her life, you know, a move, a new stepmom, you know, all these major, you know, life transitions. And she does it with this degree of vulnerability that you might not get with another performer. Pyper was our first choice and kind of our only choice. We were praying every day that she would be, you know, cleared from Nickelodeon, because, you know, I mean, really, she needs none of us. Like, Pyper is going to be a CEO one day. She's going to probably be directing herself. She's such a filmmaker. She is a true pro. I want everyone to see her audition tape, because it's just blew us away, not just her work and her emotional availability, but also her capacity of human understanding. Like, immediately after her audition, she goes, okay, you know, let me shake it off. Jeff, can I tell you a joke? She has an awareness that many adult performers don't possess. I just want to work with her for the rest of my life. She's she's a remarkable, remarkable, remarkable young actress. Betty is so emotionally available. She takes what could be a very, you know, like one note kind of role and really like transmorphs it into this other beautiful thing. Like you realize when you're watching her work and you're watching Jessica and Gloria's scenes together that Gloria was the only other person who was there and who actually is has an emotional connection to what happened. And you only get that with, you know, like truly phenomenal performers and ones who are open and willing and ready to receive, whether you're directing forthright or you're directing through performance. It's one of the rare times where I've met a director, you know, we met over Zoom. You kind of have a very like fundamental, you know, ABC conversation about your working styles. And I feel like I got him rather quickly. Like I feel like I understood him. We have a very similar approach, you know, to work. It's very rigorous, it's very demanding. We both have high expectations, but also clearly believe in, you know, kindness, and neither of us are tyrants. And yeah, I think Jeff is wonderful. I love his sense of humor. I think he appreciates that he can be as direct as he needs to be with me, and he doesn't have to like figure out how to say stuff. But he is a director who, you know, knows how to speak to each individual actors. There's a real sensitivity, you know, and I think this project, to be honest with you, probably required more vulnerability of him than he's probably experienced before. Like I felt that across the board with our crew, but I think something that was super important to me was building the kind of set environment that felt safe to tell a vulnerable story and for everyone, including our director, to, you know, be vulnerable himself. It's a safe place to acknowledge all the shadow parts of ourselves. You know, it's a safe place to admit when you feel embarrassment or shame or fear or anger or pain. And that's, you know, what makes it special. It's you feel it, you get to feel it in the dark, you know? Especially, I mean, and specifically psychological horror. You know, it's one thing to watch a horror movie and it's, you know, gory or, you know, gross, and it's another thing to watch something where you're like, I have a fear of losing my mind too. I remember the first time I was back in the theater, you know, after COVID. And I cried because I was like, oh, everyone here is experiencing the same moment at the same time. Everyone's gonna receive, you know, something completely differently. It's like Taylor, for example, is kind of the voice of the audience in many ways. Like she gets to be the one who calls out anything that somebody might just be like, that's ridiculous. She literally gets to say like, this is crazy, you know? And a lot of audience members are gonna really identify with her character. Younger viewers are gonna identify, you know, with Alice. So we all walk into stories with our own, and it hits us in, you know, distinct and indecipherable ways. And one thing I love is we don't create art in a vacuum. We're not art for art's sake people. We are people who understand what we're doing as storytellers as a communal experience, and we really invite the audience in to tell us what the story is and to tell us, you know, what they walked away with, and that's it's a part of the fun. I had Teddy Ruxpin. I remember being very upset because I have an older brother, hey Dwayne, who threw him down the stairs one day, and when I tell you there's this moment, there's an adjacent moment in our movie between Alice and Liam, and I was like, that was me. I was very protective over that teddy bear.
Enigmatic, sinister, begrudging. Imaginary is a psychological horror film that takes a common childhood experience to terrifying extremes. The film follows an average family whose youngest child develops a relationship with a seemingly harmless imaginary friend. However, When a series of eerie and inexplicable events begin to unfold, they are forced to confront the horrifying truth. Chauncey is real and he is out for vengeance. The film blurs the lines between reality and fantasy and explores the psychological and supernatural elements of fear, revenge, and the enduring power of the imagination. Imaginary is an exciting addition to the legacy of Blumhouse horror films and contributes to the ever-evolving roster of iconic characters within our library. While each Blumhouse film has its unique elements, Imaginary stands out by introducing Chauncey as a memorable and distinctive character, whose limits are only defined by those of your imagination. Iconic characters like Megan and the animatronics of Five Nights at Freddy's have left a lasting impact on the horror genre and on pulp culture. Chauncey's sinister wit and ability to change appearances offers the potential to join their ranks. This will be the third movie we do with Jeff Wadlow. We previously worked with him on Truth or Dare and Blumhouse's Fantasy Island. I have a lot of trust in his ability, so when he came to us with this idea, we were excited to explore the world. Jeff brings a unique vision and storytelling expertise to every project he's involved in, and his passion for the horror genre shines through in Imaginary. He has a strong understanding of what makes horror films resonate with audiences, and his creative approach to blending psychological horror with childhood themes is what made us so excited about this project. His ability to craft compelling characters and build tension is exceptional. It adds layers of complexity to the story, making the characters more relatable and the tension more palpable. It also shakes up the typical horror movie formula and gets the audience thinking, which keeps everything interesting and full of surprises. Plus, it taps into deep emotions, making the horror experience more engaging and more thought-provoking. Taking a common childhood experience and cranking up the fear factor is all about tapping into something relatable and then twisting it in a way that unsettles viewers. We start with the familiarity of that innocent memory and gradually introduce elements that make it eerie or disturbing. The goal is to create a sense of unease and make the audience question something they once considered safe, turning it into a source of fear and suspense. Spectral Motion Team have extensive experience and immense talent when it comes to creating the best horror movie creatures. Robert Binion puppeteered Chauncey with insightful creativity in bringing Chauncey to life. Dane DiLiegro wore the Chauncey Beast suit and tapped into his athletic basketball background to bring the Beast to life with the whole team of puppeteers. The entertainment value of horror is centered around fear, and the more a filmmaker can create a realistic fear, the more the audience will be immersed in the story and in the horror. There are instances where CGI can hit the mark, but audiences gravitate towards practical over computer-generated effects for a more authentic experience. We've found that having the actors and puppeteers work together to bring the film's creatures to life elicits the most genuine response. The film's aesthetics are carefully crafted to immerse the audience in a world that blurs the lines between reality and nightmare. The checkered walls of the Never Ever symbolize the distorted and surreal nature of the imaginary world and how the familiar can become menacing. The stark contrast between the bright, childlike patterns and the increasingly sinister events that unfold within these walls create a sense of dissonance that heightens tension and unease. Its dimly lit, cramped, and labyrinthian design taps into common fears of confinement and vulnerability. The audience's fear of the unknown is amplified as characters venture into this unsettling space, not knowing what horrors might lurk in the shadows. DeWanda has an amazing ability to convey both vulnerability and strength. She brings a depth of emotion and authenticity to her character that allows the audience to immerse themselves in her story and feel invested in it. Betty is a horror legend. Her background in Broadway allows her to truly immerse herself into each role she plays, and Gloria is no exception. Betty had a unique connection to Gloria's costumes and the set of her home that shines through on the screen. Tegan brings the perfect mixture of youth and adolescence balanced with mature life experience that allows her to effortlessly navigate the complexities for Taylor's character. Pyper has this genuine, whimsical, childlike wonder that she balances with talent and professionalism. She's impressively adept with her emotions, which was a crucial part of Alice's character arc. I love that horror has this unique ability to elicit intense emotional reaction from audiences, and there are endless creative possibilities to explore.
I was inspired to bring Imaginary together because I was challenged by Jason Blum to make a really slow, creepy movie, and I just wanted to try a very kind of slow, terrifying supernatural thriller. So to make a very slow, scary, supernatural horror movie, you just have to turn the volume down, right? So you just have to slow down, you have to take your time, you have to allow the audience the moments to explore the negative space in the shots. And what that does is it allows them to use their imagination to project what evil might be lurking behind our main characters. A major motif in the film is the artwork that our lead character creates. Jessica is an illustrator, and she has a series of children's books called Molly Millipede. And she's taken a lot of these terrifying images from her dreams, but also from her past, and tried to understand them, try to work them out through her artwork and her books. So what's cool for me about that as a filmmaker is we're able to seed a lot of these ideas, a lot of these visuals, the hallway, the blue door, the spider. You see sort of the children's version of these things in these sort of Lewis Carroll-esque books, but you see how she's taken these things that have happened to her and she's tried to process them through her creative assets, right, to generate something that she can try to understand and share with the world. DeWanda Wise is playing Jessica Barnes in the film, and she, I mean, I just don't really have the words to describe DeWanda. She is magnetic, charismatic, vulnerable, strong, smart, insightful, empathetic. What I love about her is that she's bringing so much of herself to the role of Jessica, but she's also trying to create a character that's different than herself and different than some of the roles she's played in the past. She's an executive producer on the film. She's been just a tremendous partner and collaborator, and I've loved every minute of working with her. Pyper, I mean, I can think of maybe 2 other times in my career when I've been in an audition, and when the audition finished, I went, that's the person. We actually have an expression in Hollywood. We say, put him in makeup, which means like, get him to set, put him in makeup, they're in the movie. And I turned to my casting director after that audition and I said, get her in makeup, she is it. And we had all these problems casting her because she's, you know, so talented. She was on another show, she was committed. And at one point it looked like we weren't gonna get her, and my partners at Blumhouse said, you might wanna think about someone else for this role. And I said, no, no, she's it. We have to have her. We have to have Pyper, she's that kind of talent. Tegan is fantastic in the film. She brings the perfect mixture of sort of youthfulness and adolescence to the role, but also maturity and knowledge of life and experience. It's a hard line to walk. You know, a lot of actresses we looked at for the role, they seemed just too mature, they'd seen too much, you didn't buy them in this sort of adolescent phase still. But then we looked at some other actresses who read as teenagers, but they just didn't have the experience. You didn't see the, you know, that they were carrying any sense of trauma, right? That ultimately Taylor has to bring to the movie. And watching DeWanda work with Tegan has been fantastic too. I didn't speak about their dynamic yet, but it's been interesting to watch, whereas DeWanda is really focused in on Pyper and having that sort of real kind of mentor connection with Pyper, almost parental. With Tegan, she's really developed a friendship, and they seem like buddies, which at first you think is kind of weird. Tegan's 15, how is that possible? But DeWanda has created this bond with her that really translates to the screen, because ultimately that is the central relationship in the movie, is the relationship between Taylor and Jessica. So the way you make something wonderful, like a stuffed animal, creepy, is you just kind of make it off by like 5%. So you look at Chauncey, his eyes are asymmetrical, his ears are out of whack. And that's something that I really learned from James Wan, that he talked a lot about when he looked at the script, because he's a part of Blumhouse now, and we really leaned into that idea. And also implying that there's something else going on, like something childlike and wonderful is fine when it's in the foreground, but what's going on in the background? What if there's something else, something a little more sinister? And that's where this idea of the entity came from too. It was a note from James Wan as well, this notion that the evil is not just the bear, but it's actually something else that's manipulating the bear, projecting the bear for our characters to see. The Never Ever is a place that's always shifting, and it's a reflection of what you want and what you fear. It's a kind of almost a tactile representation of your psyche. You know, in life we have all these choices, we have all these doors we can walk through, and I wanted the Never Ever to reflect that. It should physically have just doors, more doors than you can imagine, and it's obviously influenced by the artwork of M.C. Escher and Salvador Dali, so it has a surreal quality, but it's still grounded in the real world, if that makes sense. I will always choose a practical plus VFX approach, because what that does is it gives the actors something to play against. It creates a reality, and it's not just for the talent on camera, it's for the audience in the theaters, because they can feel the weight of something real. And so what you want to do is you want to trick the audience. You want to present something real, so they're focused on the real thing, so the actors are focused on the real thing, but then you change something they're not looking at, right? So if it's a puppet, right? You have the real thing there, and there's rods, there maybe even is a puppeteer behind it, but you paint out the rods, you paint out the puppeteer, but the thing that they're looking at is the real thing. So that applies to sets too, you know. At one point we talked about, is the Never Ever just a CG set? I said, no, we want to build a real set, because this is a fantastic place, and it has to have a weight, it has to have a reality to it. We have to believe that we're in a real place, and then we'll just augment it with VFX. We'll do little things that make it seem a little bit more fantastical, but we want to ground it in a reality. So our movie is set in Louisiana. It begins in New Orleans and they move into the suburbs, but we've made a choice to kind of get away from the cliche Southern Gothic thing. This is much more of a story about American families and American middle class, but also modern American families, blended families, people from different backgrounds coming together, but also people wanting to return to their roots, you know, to start to look back on their childhood and take the good parts and try to understand the parts that maybe weren't so good. So while it is very much set in Louisiana, I think it's really more of a movie about Americana and the American family, and I've loved it. The crews are amazing. The producers I'm working with are so knowledgeable and competent. Paige and Paul have been tremendous partners. I've absolutely had the best time here. Everyone works so hard. They're so talented. If I could pick another place to go and shoot a movie, I would pick here. I hope audiences take away from this film that imaginary friends might not be imaginary, and that they can be a lot of different things to different people. They can be wonderful companions, they can be terrifying monsters, and they can also be vengeful spirits who will not let go. We want them to watch the movie, and we want them to think about their own families and their own childhood and their own imagination, and think about whether or not they had an imaginary friend and how they feel about that, and realize that while that can be a beautiful thing, it also can be a really scary thing. We can also suggest that maybe that imaginary friend you had when you were a kid, maybe it wasn't as imaginary as you thought. And then that becomes a way to explore bigger ideas, bigger emotions, bigger themes. And I think just as the actors have found different themes, and just as my collaborators have found different ideas to latch onto, I think the audience will find their own when they watch the film.
I was excited to work with the Chaunceys. I didn't know there were multiple Chaunceys yet, but I was excited to work with Chauncey and see how he looked. I was excited to work with monsters. Monsters were really exciting to see in person. Alice is at the new house, getting out of her car, and she sees this new house, and it's a big house, it's a beautiful house. And Alice is the youngest daughter of the family, and she's been through a lot of trauma in her life with her mom, her biological mother, and that just makes her a little bit off. And that's why she finds love and confidence in this new imaginary friend. I think Alice really likes Chauncey because she can take care of something and love something, and she just can play with someone and have someone to like kind of interact with. I think she was scared to go through the blue door, but once she got into the imaginary world, she was happy and all her badness went away. DeWanda is fabulous. She's just a very hard worker, and she's She's a strong woman, and it's really been great having her and Tegan as my co-stars. Jeff was amazing to work with. He really does love his job, and it's really fun to work with him because he's just great, and he really does do an amazing job. He doesn't really change your character. He lets you choose your character, and that really helps me. I don't know if it helps anyone else, but it really helps me just get into Alice. He never ever is scary. I've seen it a little bit and it looks really cool. It looks so cool and like kind of old looking almost. In the room, Alice's room, there's this little toy horse that I actually have, and it's the same horse. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have that at home. And that was like, it's not mine, but I do have it. And it was really cool to see something that I own in the movie that I'm working on. It is crazy, but the chaos is fun. It's just, there's so much happening, so it's like, you're like in the moment, so like you're pulling, there's winds blowing, the entity, it's so much, but it's so crazy and it's so fun. It's like chaos, but it's like, the chaos isn't really chaos, it's like fun. It's fun chaos. I actually have a whole stuffed animal family, and it's stuffed bears. But now after this movie, I kind of want to get rid of them because bears are now creepy to me. But it's a bear family of my family, my mom, my dad, me, and my 2 older brothers.
When I first read the script, I was super excited and just intrigued about the level of physical as well as emotional stuff that Taylor goes through in this film. I was really excited to be able to portray it and just be able to do that. I would describe Taylor, I mean, she's a 16-year-old girl, she's sarcastic. We find her at a place where she's pretty unhappy with the situation that she's in, and she cares a lot about her younger sister Alice, but she does not care too much about her stepmom Jess. It's been so great, and she's super sweet, and I don't have a sister, I have 3 brothers, but working with her, I mean, we hang out a lot, and it's kind of like having a little sister that I never had, and she's super sweet and super fun to be with. Really great at creating an environment where we're all trying to support each other and reach that performance that is the best we can do. And I think at the beginning we had some great just talking through the character and her arc and Taylor and just really developing her, and it was super helpful, and he's great on set and just directing us, and he's really great. I have gone to work with Chauncey Bear. It's really cool how they take the face off of him. I'd heard them talking about it a little bit, but I was like, I don't really understand what they're saying. And then I got on set, and then they're like, okay, taking the face off, and then they just plop it off and then put a different expression on, which is so funny and so cool. I hope that when they watch it, I just think it's such a well-written film, and I think that it has like the perfect amount of jump scares and creatures and having them brought in, and I think there's so many components that I really hope the audience likes, and I hope that they're entertained and that they enjoy it. I had so many stuffed animals, and I have a lot of siblings, so they grew out of their stuffed animals, they'd pass it down, but I had loads of stuffed animals, and I was one of those kids that would just get into bed and have like 20 stuffed animals surrounded around them. So yeah, I mean, I think I definitely relied on my stuffed animals to keep me safe.
This is Chauncey. He's not imaginary. And he's not your friend.
Thanks for watching. Make sure to like and comment on the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to be notified when new videos are released.